chappers.
Hi, Gabby.
In a moment, we are going to speak to Sky Sports' David Prutton, who's a former Forest midfielder. He's going to give us a little bit more insight into what is going on at the City Ground. It is really a tale of something that seems so idyllic and perfect and was built on harmony and a smaller of the big clubs, if you like. They've got a community feel, Forest, haven't they? And I think, one of those clubs that you were enjoying their success as a neutral last season. And it's just all gone a bit Pete Tong, hasn't it?
It has. Speaking of things that have gone a little bit Pete Tong, Newcastle's summer, which we talked about a lot. But I think if I was a Newcastle fan, which you are, and we're recording this after their 3-2 home defeat by Liverpool, I would take so many positives from last night. It's hard in the immediate aftermath, but there is so much, I think, from a Newcastle point of view to go, wow, that was amazing.
I know, just enormously proud of the performance and the way those players, guided by the immense performance from Bruno. He was just incredible.
Oh,
really, they did not shirk anything last night, did they? It was just such an, and Anthony Gordon, you could argue, was clearly as a sending off, but was in that kind of playing an unfamiliar role, obviously, trying to be a centre forward, which is not an easy thing, is it, to suddenly have that thrust upon you? And I think maybe just there was a bit too keen.
Say. I mean, it was still a terrible challenge.
It was awful. The hole in the back of Van Dijk's sock was, I don't even know why they needed to go to VAR for that. But it was almost written the stars that they would get the winner in that 11 minutes of extra time at the end. You know what the most annoying thing was about that match? Was at about 5 o'clock yesterday, Kenny Logan, my husband, said, "You're going to lose 3-2 tonight." He actually predicted that scoreline. And so when we were 2-2 with 1 minute on the clock, I was thinking, well, I'm taking a point here all day long because that was an incredible comeback. But equally, you're going to be wrong, I said to him. And he was bloody
right. Did he rub that point in or not?
Only a few times, but also I think as a Manchester United fan, he hasn't got too far to go with any kind of smugness at the moment.
I had a Manchester United fan text me last night whilst that game was on to say if only our players displayed this
fight,
this energy, this togetherness over recent years, that would have put a smile on my Manchester United supporting.
It does seem inevitable, doesn't it, that in the next couple of days we are going to be talking about Isak's signing for Liverpool as well. That feels like it's coming now.
Yeah, but then the delegation that's been to his house, has that changed anything? Has it? Why would they go to
over the weekend that sometime this week that's going to be sorted, and it's going to be spun in a way that makes it look like Newcastle have got top dollar and Liverpool are going to spin it that they've got a great deal. But let's see.
But they've still got to get striking. They've still got to get forwards in. And so whatever Liverpool offer, if they can't get a couple of forwards in, I don't see how they can accept it. I don't, because they're going to be, they're going to be in a real mess if they can't get anybody in. And now there's talk of Nicholas Jackson going on loan.
Yeah.
To Bayern, I think.
Bayern, yeah.
Wolves have rejected their bid for Strand Larsen, so
maybe that's got a bit of negotiation.
Where are they going?
So if that bid was rejected, maybe it's just a matter of terms on that one, maybe. And on a happier note, had a wonderful evening at the Stadium of Light last Friday for England's opener of the Rugby World Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup, of course, against the United States. It was such an incredible atmosphere. And of course, the Stadium of Light is not used to hosting women's rugby matches, and it was just brilliant. And obviously it was a comprehensive win. That was to be expected because USA are nowhere near the level that England are, and their run of wins has just been incredible. They've only lost 1 in 58 matches. So a great solo try as well. A solo effort by Ellie Kildunn, who eventually offloaded it to Jeff Breach, but was one of the tries of the tournament arguably already.
And Gabby's sit down with several members of the squad dropped over the weekend. You can catch up with that and all of our episodes on YouTube, Global Player, or wherever you get your pods. And I don't know what you were doing in the Match of the Day office on Sunday evening, but I was very happy to be at home and just watching the golf. It was on. I thought it might have been. And just watching the golf. And I don't think the phrase "Go on, Tommy," or "Come on, Tommy" has been said in our lounge as much as me and my son did on Sunday night. It was just Oh my God, it was just a joy to see him win the Tour Championship. It was just amazing.
And so we I think in this country appreciate that he's very popular. When you saw the flood of messages coming in from all quarters of sport to congratulate him, LeBron James, Caitlin Clark, Michael Phelps, I mean, Tommy Fleetwood is one hell of a popular guy.
Well, and actually that came through in the cheers of the crowd. The crowd were on his side as well. Now I contrast that to a few weeks ago when he lost the Travellers to Keegan Bradley. The crowd weren't anti-Fleetwood then, but they were very much pro Bradley, who is the US Ryder Cup captain. So there were lots of USA chants, and it was all part and parcel of it. And I really felt for him as he lost the Travellers. He then lost a subsequent one as well to Justin Rose. But what was really noticeable in Atlanta was the crowd were completely on his side. Now, that one highlights his popularity. Secondly, it probably highlights how not popular Patrick Cantlay is in all of this, as that was the one who was going head to head with. But Scheffler was in the running for a while as well, and yet the crowd were just urging Tommy on. He is one of the most popular sportsmen on the planet at the moment.
Yeah, and that is great for Europe, as we are weeks away from a Ryder Cup, isn't it? To take somebody
he won't be popular then.
Well, I just want, will he still have a little pocket of that crowd that, will they appreciate him at all, or will they just, no, you'd think they're turning on him?
No, they're going to be horrible. They're going to wait till we discuss that. They're going to be horrible.
So
he won't be popular.
Is he the most universally loved sports person in the world right now? Let us know if you agree or disagree via email, thesportsagents@global.com, or on our socials, or via the link in the episode description.
Back to today's main story, though. A Premier League club who are undoubtedly one of last season's biggest success stories rocked to its foundations just 2 games into the new season. What is going on with Nuno and Nottingham Forest? That's next.
Can Nuno survive this? More from David Prutton after the break. David, thank you so much for joining us on The Sports Agents to discuss something that I think a lot of football fans would have thought almost impossible, implausible, that Forest, that seemingly had this incredible togetherness and team spirit last year that led them to overachieve in the league and get themselves a place in Europe, can be kind of, all that can be crumbling from within and without. And it's obviously, we don't know where we are right now, do we? We know the manager told us on Sunday that he doesn't know whether he's going to be here at the end of the transfer window. How surprised were you? Did you see this coming at all from the end of last season?
The only bit that stood out that potentially could have sowed the seeds for this, I was working on the Leicester City game. Obviously, Leicester bidding farewell to the Premier League and putting up a fight as and when that horse had bolted. And the owner came on the pitch, didn't he, to speak to Nuno in inverted commas, which I think was retrospectively narrated in a different way, because what I saw and how it was then framed about the welfare of Taiwo Awoniyi, which again is part of it. He's in a pretty bad way after colliding with a post. And that remonstration for me was not really anything to do with Taiwo. It's to do with what had happened in the game, which then put them in jeopardy of the Champions League places. And we know how that all panned out. So I thought there was a little inkling there. Obviously, fast forward, the rest of the season pans out. The off season, everyone goes and kind of gets away on holiday. Pre-season comes around, and it all seemed to be pretty rosy. Then you see Edu come in, and then this is what I've been really trying to work out, because quite clearly Edu and Nuno don't like each other. Now, I don't know whether that's personal. I don't know whether anything's happened, but seemingly from all my digging, that's kind of happened on day one. It's hello, brilliant, right, let's crack on. And they've gone their own way about doing that particular job. And then you hear Nuno's words before the first game of the season against Brentford, where he talked about the team being completely undercooked, underprepared. And I was sat there watching it kind of almost with your jaw on the floor thinking, I mean, these are big, big statements, because Nuno's known, isn't he, for being pragmatic, a bit of a politician. The big smile comes out when he's finished his answer, and you kind of go, okay, he's said his bit. You're not getting anything else out of him. So then you go into the first game of the season, which I was privileged to be at, and they were absolutely sensational, taking apart a Brentford team, obviously in transition, but all their key players stood up. Chris Wood, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson. The defence was rock solid once again. And then it just seems, you fast forward once again to the statements or the rumours coming out of Italy that he was supposedly coming away from the football club, which was never dampened down either, was it, by Nuno? He literally said where there's, where there's a bit of smoke, there tends to be a bit of fire. So now they find themselves at this impasse, which potentially this week there's a meeting to be had. But again, Nuno doesn't sound in any real rush to have this meeting, does he? He's in charge. He's preparing the team. Players have come in. Whether those players have come in off the back of him saying they're underprepared, I don't know. But the one thing that the owner's done is put his money where his mouth is. Whether those players that come in are Nuno's or Edu's, we'll soon see. They're very good players with potential. But right now, you've got the owner and Edu on one page, and Nuno seemingly kind of cracking on with the players. And that, to go back to the original question, Gabby, did not see it coming at all. And given how quickly it's escalated in a week, it references a Nottingham Forest of, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, which was used to a bit of carnage and a bit of kind of craziness, and had really settled down with an owner who I think categorically has been a wonderful thing for Forest. However, this situation needs to come to a head.
But if Marinakis and Edu are on one page and Nuno's on the other with the players, is that necessarily a bad thing? As in, and that's the structure of a lot of football clubs now.
Yeah,
you're our head coach. You and the players sort yourselves out, and we'll take care of everything else.
I mean, it's almost classically Clough-like at Forest, isn't it? Where he was up very famously all about the players and the playing staff, and the hierarchy did what he told them to do, or did their own thing, but kept it away from the players. So I think you're right, Mark. Probably in that there is something, because if he continues to do what he's done, which is mould a very, very good team together, as I said, that for 20 minutes against Brentford, they looked absolutely fantastic. And then the rest of the game was very, very straightforward. Slightly different, of course, against Palace, and you've got new players there coming onto the pitch to bed in. So I don't, that sense of it being all negative, I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't necessarily need to be like that. As long as the performances on the pitch don't become a sideshow to what's going on off the pitch.
But then the other thing, Gabby, you were doing Match of the Day on Sunday, and you had Rob Green and Troy with you, and Forest did, as they said in their analysis of you, Forest did what Forest do in getting their point at Palace. The other thing that struck me in those post-match interviews and pre-match interviews with Nuno, Gabby, a bit like, it won't surprise you to know that I have some sympathy with this. It's like he's blown off in an argument, thrown the toys out of the pram, and then 48 hours later has gone, well, yeah, everything's all right, and I'm smiling. And he was very smiley, wasn't he, on Sunday?
He was very, he's on the one hand seems like he's very much in control of his destiny. And the guys were surmising or kind of wondering whether or not he was actually creating the narrative publicly more than the club are, so that if this doesn't work out very well, constructive dismissal is going to potentially be, his argument, because actually on the one hand, he's very unified with those players, isn't he? And clearly to get a player like Morgan Gibbs-White to re-sign a contract and stay at the club, there has to be great relationship with the players. So is this a case of, almost like there's too many cooks on one side. Edu, obviously, Ross Wilson, who's going to potentially be leaving to go to Newcastle. You've got a very dominant owner who has strong opinions, and they're just not finding that balance of relationship. Because so many clubs, I don't know about you agree with this, chappers, have a sporting director who just seems to get on with the job, and the manager kind of accepts that that's his role. Whereas it feels here like that relationship. He said he's not as close, didn't he, Dave, to Marinakis? Has that caused a tension in their relationship that now is, unsolvable in terms of any harmony going forwards?
It's a strange way of going about fostering good relations, isn't it? Almost kind of saying, I can't speak to the owner, so I'm going to use the media as my vehicle to get my messages across. And there was a little insight into the Mark Chapman psyche there. So you normally blow up chappers, do you? And retrospectively go,
he was admitting it, wasn't he?
What's the problem? It's absolutely fine now. But that's very much Nuno's way, isn't it? I mean,
there's a lot of Latin temperaments going on, not with chappers, obviously, but there's a lot of Latin temperament
from the northwest. There is
from Rochdale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that hotbed of that type of temperament. But I mean, again, rumours suggest that. I mean, going back to when Edu first took over, that Nuno wanted someone of an Adama Traore ilk. Amari Hutchinson comes in again, very good player, young player, a lot of money, 37 million quid for a player such as that. But there was a Mendes approach at one stage at Forest, to a degree, not necessarily only his players. And Keir Jarabchin, obviously, is Edu's kind of camp as well. So whether there's a movement with regards to what type or what model of player comes in, I don't know. But that's that sense of him sounding off in the media about their relationship, saying it wasn't what it was. And that's the great thing. As much as he's very, very combustible, the owner, there's not many. I don't think you do well to find a Forest fan that thinks that having him in charge is a bad thing. I mean, he took the Premier League on, stepped forward and said, this is what we're going to do. We've got them back into Europe. Yes, there was that slight disappointment about it not being the Champions League, but the Europa League, given, of course, what happened with Palace, is a wonderful opportunity for them. And that then dovetailed into the type of players that they're getting into the football club. Douglas Luiz being another one. That level of play, that strata of player, it's a different supermarket type analogy, isn't it? You're in that competition, so you get a different level of player. But that ability, there'll be a lot of ego as well. So whether there's a bit of power play at play, where who backs down, who blinks first, because we're only ever going to hear from Nuno. You won't hear too much from Edu. The minute we start putting a microphone in front of Edu, something slightly, it then goes slightly amiss. And seemingly the only time you see the owner is when he stood next to his captain telling him that you're happy to be here, aren't you, Morgan? Yes, of course I am. It's a wonderful place to be.
Which was reflected, obviously, in the banner that the Crystal Palace fans had very cleverly got together with depicting a gun being held to the head of Morgan Gibbs-White by Marinakis, which, think what you like about that. Well, you got to say football fans are very quick off the mark, aren't they, sometimes? And ironic as well that it was Palace fans kind of doing that. I wonder if that will show up anywhere else throughout the Premier League. But he does mark, doesn't he? Marinakis, he's more, sometimes more famous, than the club in terms of stories that come out. We've had this for quite a long time with him compared to other owners. You don't see or hear from quite as much. He's got very high profile.
Well, he's got a high profile, and he cares. And actually, you could ask a lot of football fans about what's going on with their clubs at the moment. I mean, one of David's former clubs as well, actually, in Sheffield Wednesday, who football fans want their owners to care, and Forest fans have an owner that cares. The thing that I was talking to a Forest fan last night. The bizarre thing in all of this for Forest fans is that they like both the men on either side of this argument, in the owner and the head coach. Now, they don't. Edu's neither here nor there at the moment, but if these transfers pay off that they've brought in, then they're going to like Edu as well. My personal view is I think they've done really good business this summer. So to have this blow up over transfers, I find a little bit odd at the moment. But the Forest fan that I was talking to was saying that their questioning at the moment was more of Nuno, and why do this, and why bring this out into the open when everything, at the end of the summer, and they're going into the Europa League, and this all seems quite. They were very happy with how things were going until Nuno spoke. And actually, their feeling was, and this is just one person, I appreciate that, David, but their feeling was that their loyalty would be more with Marinakis than with Nuno. And they've been here before, with Cooper going and Nuno replacing Steve Cooper. They've lost managers that they've liked before, but then have trusted the process. And they kind of felt that they'd feel this again if he was to leave. But that's just one fan.
No, I'd agree with that, because we saw that emotional outpouring when Steve moved on. And there was a faction saying, I mean, how could he ever be replaced? But by the very nature of what football is, I mean, the king is dead, long live the king. Yeah. Nuno comes in, elevates the squad. He's so amenable in the right kind of way, without being a pushover, of saying the right thing, doing the right thing, bringing everyone together, saying, like, I understand what the situation is. I understand they've just packed the bags and left, and I've come and moved into the house, but it's going to be fine. Give us a bit of time, we'll get there. And they've absolutely done that with Bells on the season. Last season was phenomenal. All the kind of very quick takes on what Forest is, about it being historical, about it being a wonderful home crowd, about the atmosphere. All those he very much harnessed and pushed in the right direction. So I absolutely get that, and because what Marinakis is, which is what the modern which is what football fans forever have always wanted, is you want an owner that cares, and more importantly, you want an owner with deep pockets who doesn't mind spending money. And he's done absolutely both of those things, even with the threat of everything to do with PSR and what's been thrown his way. The one, just you saying that about which side you take, and with the greatest respect to sporting directors or global heads of football, or whatever it's titled, we shouldn't really know too much about them, should we? They should get on with the job. They should, and you know what I mean, to kind of pull in one direction. No one's gonna. I'm rooting for the sporting director. I mean, as a take on it down the pub with your mates, you'd be like, "What? Who? Well, what?" And you'd go either the manager or the owner, or hopefully together. And Michael Edwards at Liverpool was a man that I've known for a very, very, very long time, and he's been quite open at times when we've chatted about bits and bobs, and this is not betraying any trust or anything like that. And he talks about when, obviously, Jurgen Klopp and the change in his reign at Liverpool, and what Michael's job is that conduit between the ownership and the manager. And the manager might want certain things. The ownership kind of goes, well, we can't really do that. The person that says no to the manager is the fella in the middle. So when you're in a position potentially where this day-to-day relationship starts to become you constantly saying no to someone, that's always going to breed resentment, frustration, because to jump above and go to the owner is a slightly different thing. These men are put into these jobs to deal with agents, to deal with contracts, to deal with negotiations, and they've got to be very strong to say, well, you might want this, but we've looked at all this and we think we should go here.
Is the comment that he said our relationship has changed, implying that since Edu's come along,
they come in the middle of it all,
where he would have had direct communication perhaps before. So you start off one job and you've got a hotline to your boss, and then suddenly somebody else is put in the middle. You can understand, chappers, can't you, why that would cause problems for you in terms of the overall communication within the club. I guess what we're maybe struggling to understand or wondering how it's happened is that he's come out, Nuno, and started doing his own comms, basically. He's doing his own spinning almost outside of the club. And that's where it looks like it's not going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, and the proof in the pudding comes from who brings the players in. If the manager kind of gets his head down a little bit and these players help to manage this season, if they are successful in this season, both at home and abroad, then the players that Edu, not on his own, brought in would have then be deemed a success. So then I can't see it lasting all season where it's kind of Nuno's camp not talking to the other camp, because at some stage that'll come to a head. At some stage, something will happen that means that it'll blow up. And given that slightly more combustible side, to use your word, Gabby, about Nuno and what we've seen, shows that he'll probably take this for a while, but it won't take it forever. But then on the flip side of it is going back to what we said about the job that he's got, and he was quite categorical in calling it absurd that he'd walk away from it. He's in an elite club of 20 people that around the world, everybody wants to come here to have one of those 20 jobs. Everybody on the planet wants to come and have one of those 20 jobs. It would be madness of sorts to say, thanks, I'm leaving, over a kind of principle take.
Over Adama Traore. If that, I mean, no, but genuinely,
you're right. You're right.
If that is where the sort of falling out began, just by saying it sounds ridiculous.
Is it also to do with his continued communication with Marco Silva and also having allegedly conversations with Ange Postecoglou as well? Is that you could see why you might get a little bit insecure about your job.
Well, I think as well, I mean, obviously they played Palace at the weekend, and you're coming up against, I mean, Oliver Glasner, I think, he's got a year left on his contract. Yeah. Brendan Rodgers is another name that's been chucked around. Jose Mourinho. Well. Yeah, I mean, and it's I suppose that's the other side of it is, but maybe that's, if you are a billionaire businessman, maybe it's your want to keep your employees on their toes and kind of go, he's doing a good job. What do you mean he's doing a good job? I'm doing a good job. Yeah, you are, but he's also doing a good job. So just keep doing your good job, and everything will be rosy. So he's a naturally combative fella, isn't he? I mean, there were pictures of him sat watching the game, as I said, against Brentford. They were fantastic, but every time we panned across, I kept thinking, you are winning. There's several goals up here. You can't just sat there expressionless, and then at the end he's big smile and a clap and he's off. So yeah. He's undoubtedly a demanding man to work for, but I guess you don't become as successful as he has without being so utterly demanding of everyone around you. And Nuno either gets on with it, maybe compromises to a certain degree, or he doesn't, and he's gone before the end of the season.
I mean, you mentioned Jose Mourinho being one of the names linked if Nuno was to go.
Can you imagine?
I mean, oh my God.
Fractious
Marianakis and
much?
Jose
What are you talking
Mourinho.
about? I think that's a beautiful combination. Honestly, it's perfect.
Match made in heaven.
Good grief. I mean, the other thing in all of this, and I was talking to Sammy Mockbell as well yesterday, the BBC Sport journalist. He was saying what he had heard from around and about. Nuno's gone to the top of several other. You talk about 20 jobs and everybody wanted them. He's gone to the top of several other clubs in the Premier League of their list if they were to make a change. So I think he'll be all right.
Oh, I mean, whichever way it pans out, I always chatting about managers, and this is a broader point about managers. There's a story about that a friend of a friend told me about David Wagner coming out of Huddersfield, who was obviously very, very close to Jurgen Klopp, and they've been on this wonderfully emotional journey in the Premier League. Gets fired, and the story goes that Jurgen rings him up and goes, "Congratulations," and he goes, "What?" He said, "You're a millionaire." Well, yeah, but I haven't got a job. Yes, but you did a good job. You got paid well, and you've been paid off well. You're fine. So there is it sounds so very cynical, but there is an element of that. Yeah, Nuno would be highly coveted at home and abroad with what he's done. Because of the football he plays, it's wonderful, and the way that he's set the team up is wonderful.
You don't think it would make owners think, "Oh, he might be a bit tricky to work with"? Yeah, well, he might not work well with a sporting director. Does that?
Yeah,
put
I mean,
owners off?
I can see how that would be the case. It depends how ambitious or desperate the club is.
Or whether they think it's like that whole thing, isn't it? The whole girlfriend boyfriend thing. I'll be the one to tame him. I'll make sure that he does.
Which, as we know, never ever happens.
Well. Yeah.
No, always ends in disaster. Yeah, I mean, there could be
I
that.
can think of plenty of difficult managers who seem to keep, without going back to an earlier conversation, who seem to keep getting jobs.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, and one person's difficult is another one's kind of fascination, and that's how you see these people set up, and whether the lifespan of a modern football coach / manager is different to what it was a decade ago, maybe 5 years ago. So the fact that he's got a decent body of work under his belt at Forest, off the back of doing we forget obviously the job that he did at Wolves, and obviously Spurs was a slightly different time for him, but there were question marks in the Forest fans about when Nuno came in about what he would bring. Again, it was an emotional reaction to Steve Cooper going, but that ability to kind of go again with a different manager, and they fall in love all over again, but in a slightly different way, gets them back into Europe. We all know the storied history of Forest in Europe.
Dave and Chappers, do you think it also throws up, and it's not maybe a conversation for right now, the whole kind of relationship with directors of football or whatever performance director, whatever they're called, the person that is kind of doing the transfers and bringing in the players, and the owners and the manager, it really has evolved so much in the last 5 to 10 years and that every club, has to have somebody now in that position. Obviously, at the moment, Newcastle haven't got somebody in that position. Look what a mess they're in terms of transfers. That actually managers have to kind of shift their mindset. What is my job? What is my role? I need to get that clearly demarcated before I take this job.
Yeah, and they need to know what the role of the sporting director is. I mean, you mentioned Newcastle there. Well, Ross Wilson is still at Nottingham Forest, and he's rumoured he's expected to take over the sporting director role at Newcastle once this transfer window is over. But as we certainly discussed at Gabby, didn't we, around Dan Ashworth at Manchester United? It depends. You have to define what you want your sporting director to be. Do you want your sporting director? And to be fair to Edu, he's their global director of football for the Marianakis group. This isn't just a Nottingham Forest thing. And do you want them to be a visionary? Do you want them to set a culture? Do you want them to make sure that everything is joined up within both a club, but also maybe a multi-ownership group? And that's everything from academy through to first team, through to the women's team. Are you overseeing the whole culture of a place, or are you some kind of transfer wizard and you're going to take the recruitment side of things? And the mistake that a lot of clubs, I think, can make is they're not quite sure. And then a head coach or a manager will then find themselves thinking, well, what are you? Are you meant to be helping me with players? Am I meant to be looking for? And that's the problem.
And also as well, I mean, if it ends up being whether Nuno sees this as a threat to his actual man. I mean, having seen Edu's work and the little bits and bobs that you'd hear about his opinion on it, he's not trying to be a de facto manager, is he? He's not trying to get into the place where he's taking training or anything. I mean, the job itself sounds, as you say, Chappers, the size of it just sounds very grand, but obviously it'd be very busy. He'll be all over the planet doing Marinakis' bidding, wherever that may be. So that ability to be able to provide the manager with ostensibly what the manager wants, whether that's an Adama Traore type player or literally Adama Traore, maybe we're making a bigger deal of this than we need to, but it's about giving him the tools, i.e. the players, to be able to get this club one step further than they got last season, which is a huge ask, considering it's a team still in its infancy back in the Premier League. They're going up against, if you you erase the last 30 or 40 years of what has happened, Forest were that big football club. There's been a quantum leap in the finances of all these other clubs that have managed, and the rulings and the way that these clubs are handled with regards to how they spend that money, that now means that Forest are playing catch up for over a couple of decades now to get to where they are. So in that short space of time, they've done wonderfully well. They now can't afford to step back, because if you stood still, you're stepping back, then you're going to get overtaken. So that's probably where he finds this. And there was since the owner took over, there was an extremely scattergun approach to recruitment. The players coming out their ears, and you'd go down the squad list, and you just forget who was there. Think, well, he's been alone for 2 years. You couldn't get your head around who was there and who wasn't there. It seems to have been a lot clearer. And then going back to your point, Mark, about the players that they brought in, I think there's been some really, really good work been done. I still think there's an element of the unproven with an Amara Hutchinson and James McAtee, both fantastic players, but still finding their feet regularly, I think, in the Premier League. So there is, like every transfer, there's a bit of a jeopardy and a bit of a gamble with that. But the structure and the people that they've got in that team, and I'm not saying this because I've got an affection for them from way back when, but it's an extremely likable team of players, who work hard, gel together, play football in a wonderful way. Alanga goes, so they buy and Doy scores on his debut, brilliant. And again, going back to your point, Gabby, it was all going so swimmingly well. Everyone, why are you two arguing at the top of all this? Because these are good players, whether they're the players that Nuno wanted, that may be the kind of real crumb at the start of it all to maybe for Nuno, and I say this with the utmost respect because I think he's been a glorious manager for Forest so far. Maybe it's just something that he has to get over.
If he can.
Yeah. Time will tell.
It will indeed. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us a little bit deeper insight into that. I think maybe they just need to get into a room with a psychologist or something, don't they, or a relationship counsellor, and just
mediation. Mediation's needed, isn't it?
Or just have a pint.
Yeah.
Of ouzo.
yeah. And he'll come out with a Adama Traore signed and sealed.
So we were discussing the mixed doubles at the US Open last week, chappers, and now the main draws are well underway, and it's been filled with a bit of drama, controversy. You've had Medvedev smashing his racket up, and perhaps the most shocking thing, Carlos Alcaraz getting rid of all of his beautiful hair. I mean, what? It's like lockdown haircuts kind of come back. Apparently, this was to do with his brother trying to trim his hair for him and it going wrong, and he shaved it all off.
You would have thought, wouldn't you, that he would have had somebody who knew what they were doing to cut his hair. I mean, we work with enough footballers, ex-footballers, Micah, who has his own personal, his own personal hairdresser with him. So I'm very surprised that he doesn't have his own person with him to cut his hair.
And without vanity, clearly, because he's just let his brother do it and then just shaved it all off. So,
well, I have to say, it is very. I mean, I haven't gone as as severe as Carlos Alcaraz. I think that looks like he's gone like number 2 or number 3 all over. So, but I had mine cut during the summer to go like to a sort of number 6 or something on top. It is very liberating. And also, not that Carlos Alcaraz has to worry about this. People then ask you if you've lost weight, and it's like, no, I've just done it.
Yeah, sure, that's not on his mind. Well, this is what this is how Francis Tiafoe reacted to the Buzz Cup. Yeah.
Okay. So
and it does seem US does a kind of afford a little bit more merriment around these kinds of things, doesn't it? It's almost actively encouraged in their press conferences, and it's got a totally different tone to Wimbledon. I'm not saying which.
Oh my God, it's so much. It is fun. It is fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, even I thought, oh, I quite like Jack Draper's vest. I thought actually that looks quite cool in what you're playing at. I know he's got his arm kind of
I was going to
strapped.
say the arms help, don't they?
Yeah, yes, they do. Yes.
And a lot's been made of that as well. He seems to have kind of got even more kind of buff, doesn't he, over the last few months, Jack Draper.
So you suggesting I don't try a vest to go with my short haircut?
Get a vest. Yeah.
Well,
nobody's going to say the words like midlife and crisis together.
That's your other podcast. I keep telling you, that's your other podcast.
Come on.
Moving swiftly on. If you've got a question for us or a topic you want us to cover on the podcast, get in touch. The email thesportsagents@global.com or on our socials or via the link in the episode description.
And you can catch up with the shows you might have missed on YouTube, Global Player, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember to hit subscribe or follow for that.
And we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for listening.
The Sports Agents
with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.